agenda. Take agenda.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the October 4th City of Glens Falls Planning Board meeting. We have a very lengthy agenda this evening. I believe there's 9, 10 items, maybe 11 items on our agenda. I've spoken with the applicant for the old business. We do have one order of new business that I'm going to move forward in our agenda just because of a conflict that the applicant asked. Our first item on our agenda this evening is the review and potential approval of the minutes from the September 6th, 2022 meeting. I will start with Ken. Keith, do you have any comments on those?
Actually, I do not at this point.
Okay. Art? Nothing from you? Bridget? Nothing there?
Nothing.
The only item that I had that was listed is that Kim Andrews was listed as president. She was not here. You updated that? Okay. All right. That was the only thing I had. So then I would make a motion that we accept the minutes as amended. All in favor? Aye. That motion carries. The item I'm going to move forward, is there somebody here from the Arts Council? Yes. Hi. Good afternoon. So our first item is going to be the mural review, 220012, pursuant to the City Code 180, the Arts District of Glens Falls is seeking a signboard review and approval for the installation of a mural on the building located at 207 Glen Street, owned by the Wood Theater Board of Directors. The mural is to be installed on the side of the building facing the Wood Theater alleyway. Good afternoon.
Hi.
For the record,
Oh,
let us know who you are.
Yes, I'm Kate Austin with the Arts District. I'm the co-founder and administrator.
And would you just give us a little rundown of what we've got going on with this mural? I know you've been here before for the other ones.
Yeah. Well, so we heard you when you said you wanted local history to be represented, and we heard the public when they said they wanted local history to be represented. So, and we heard the Wood Board when they said they wanted local history to be represented. So, out of all the applicants, we chose Michael Ferrero. He's from Chicago. He's done a deep dive into the history of Glens Falls. We've also done a survey of the public to ask what they would like to see on the wall, so that could help inform the artist. And we also reached out to Maury Thompson, Mark Frost, and I think Wayne Wright, the city historian, and some others to ask what they thought should be on the wall. So this is what the artist put together. As you may anticipate, we can't make everybody happy, but it's a good like 40 different things that are represented. And then in addition to these images, we're working on something online that will give a little bit more detail about what that image is and what the history is. So that's
Yeah, I saw that. There's going to be some kind of like a plaque.
like a QR code or something. Yeah.
With a QR code that people can scan and get taken to a website to get some of the history stuff.
Yes.
I saw that.
Yeah.
It was quite interesting.
Yes, and he's aiming to complete it by the end of October.
Okay. The intent is to start it this month.
Like, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Pending approval.
And can you just give us kind of a rundown of where it is in relationship to that alleyway? I mean, I know we have these. We got these just recently.
Yeah. So here's the Wood Theater alleyway. As you know, it's kind of a small, narrow alleyway, so we couldn't pick a design that you needed to stand back from in order to see, like we did with some of the other ones. They're really big. So we thought what would be the best for people to take selfies in front of and also to see is this kind of walking tour of the history of Glens Falls. So as you walk down, you can't see everything at once, but you can kind of see, it's like a bunch of posters on the wall.
Poster boards.
Yeah, so it's on the Wood Theater side. It doesn't go all the way up. It goes about as high as the awnings do, and it starts a little bit off the floor, off the ground. So water won't be a problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this application for the mural? I see no hands, which is a distinct change from the last time. Yes.
Joy Miller. It seems to me that touching that wall, I love the design idea. That's finished brick, and then up across from it is unfinished brick. And the lights seem to cast more light on the other side. I know that's the one owned by the wood, but I was wondering if anybody had thought to do it on the other side.
We reached out and we had trouble connecting with the building owner, but that was definitely an idea that was thrown around. And part of the reason that we chose this wall was, again, due to time constraints, and we knew that the wood theater board was willing to work with us in a short time frame. And they really liked the idea too, and wanted it on their but I agree, yeah, the other wall gets more fun. Yeah, right, exactly. That and lighting is probably a phase two to this. We actually have this vision of like all the alleyways in Glens Falls having something cool. You know, whether it's lighting, like the Exchange Street Alley, or a mural that is lit, but something to definitely like revive them and make them a place we want to be. Yeah. And this one leads to Lyrac too. That was another thought. It's kind of a connected dots location on the Arts Trail.
Great. Anybody else? I will start with Mr. Ricardo.
I think that is fine mural. I opposed to, I was opposed to the other ones, but this is a fine one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's more of your alley, yeah.
Mr. Brown, I should have started with you. I completely skipped by. You're on the wrong side of Peter for me to do that.
That's okay.
Our architectural consultant, Mr. Brown.
I think it's great. I'm glad to make an alleyway a destination point. And, yeah, it's too bad the lights aren't on the opposite wall to illuminate that at night. This sort of treatment is very popular down in southern states.
Sure.
So,
I'm sorry, could I just say loudly while I have all these people in the room that if we get more funding, we can do more stuff. And we would love to light up that alley.
okay.
That's it. Okay. Thank you. Ms. Murray.
I agree. I think you've got some really neat things here that you're gonna, have on that wall. I think it's gonna be wonderful, and I think the job that you guys did with the other murals I think they look fantastic.
Thank you.
So I think it's gonna be great.
Ms. Murray.
I second Rachel. I have no questions, concerns. I'm excited to see that.
Again, to go over what Rachel said, the other ones look great. This is going to take that alleyway and bring it where people will walk through it, and pass through. It's going to be a good city.
It's bold, and it should be. If we're gonna, try to make, a silk purse out of a South Vera, basically, in an alleyway, I think this is a great way to start off.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, those were the comments that I had as well. I have walked down an alley at night, and it's not terribly dark. I mean, those are fairly decently bright lights in there. At twilight, is it maybe not as bright? Yeah, maybe not. But again, I think that the lights that are out there put enough light that this will obviously help a little bit. And I think that doing something with that alleyway is certainly warranted. So I'm completely in favor of what you've got going.
Thank you. We'll probably be back to get lighting approved whenever the money shows up.
Sure.
For all of the murals, because that would make sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. That being said, Rachel, you want to pull it together for this?
I'd like to make a motion that the Glens Falls Planning Board approve the mural / sign permit for the premises identified as 207 Glen Street, Wood Feeder Alleyway, specifically for a mural and subject to no conditions.
Great, thank you.
Acting
Second?
acting as the board of sign review.
Acting as the board of sign review.
Second.
Second? All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Very good. Thank you very much. Thanks, Kate. All right. Okay, so now we'll get into our main, we got that one out of the way, we'll get into the main body of the agenda. Just for everyone's edification, the last item on our agenda this evening is a sketch plan review that the Economic Development Director, Jeff Flagg, will be giving us. It is for the Market Center on South Street, 51 to 63 South Street. Because this is a sketch plan review, and it's the board's first look at this, we will not be having a public comment on it. You're welcome to stay and listen to the application and listen to we don't actually have a full application in front of us. It's just a sketch plan review. So it's our intention to listen to the presentation from Mr. Flagg and go through that. And then once they make a full application, we will then take public comment at that time. So our first item on, at least it was just your cane, not you. Our first item on our agenda is old business. It's site plan review 220013 for Spring City Development Group, owners of 31, 41, and 45 South Street and 31 and 36 Elm Street. They're seeking site plan review and approval to renovate the existing structures, turn them into mixed-use building, and to construct a new structure for commercial and residential use. Good afternoon, Ms. Kajal.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Libby Carino. I'm here tonight on behalf of Spring City Development. We started this process with the board and the city essentially back in June. We've been here several times navigating the municipal process. There have been 3 iterations of the plan submissions, which I believe we hope have been responsive to all comments. However, with me tonight from our development team is Lori Harris and Larry Novak from Spring City, Scott Townsend, our architect, and Kelsey Carr from I don't want to say Chazen. I'm sorry. Anyway, from the Bella. I apologize. I've been at this for 2 decades. Some habits are hard. So we have our team here to answer any responsive questions, but we don't have a primary presentation given the number of times we've been here. I did want to give a brief update as to our position as to the seeker process, in that the 30 days now for the coordination of lead agency have expired. I was not in receipt of any indications to seek lead agency status. I'm not sure if the city is, so I believe we would be in a position to proceed with the planning board at this time. Thank you.
I believe that is in fact the case. We have had some responses, but none of them have been, they wanted to seek lead agency. They were referring to us as lead agent on this, so I tend to agree with you. I think that Darren, you can back me up. I think we've gotten everybody's response.
Right, we sent 12 different, or excuse me, 11 different agencies, 3 have responded, no one saw lead agency status.
So I believe that leaves us with, the 30 days has expired for anybody else to step forward for that. So I know there was a couple of open items that were on some people's items that were open. Has everything been addressed with the fire department? Do you know if that's all been taken care of?
I'm gonna have Kelsey come up.
Yeah.
I think that there were conversations with the fire department. I think from our perspective, they are resolved, but defer.
Okay.
Yeah, so we changed the elevation of the overhang for the entry beneath the building so that it meets the fire code. And we'll have enough clearance for all of the largest fire apparatus that they have. And we do have adequate turning movements based upon that largest equipment as well.
Inside
the parking
they're
area.
able to get back there and set the
Yes.
tower. That was the other thing I think that John Pagano and Chief Schrammel were looking at.
Yes.
So, okay.
Yep.
All right. I told them I would ask that question. I thought that it had been addressed, but I just wanted to clarify that. Okay. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this application?
Gary had to be out of town and he's left me with notes. So there were two comments from the project council at previous meetings that the existing buildings, 41 South, 45, and 36 Elm, are somehow exempt from site plan and architectural review. The applicant submission drawing G002 highlights pertinent parts of the city code, section 2219, the central business district, that states all uses in the CCD district are subject to site plan review, and all uses are subject to architectural review. So there's no exceptions to those requirements. Each one needs to be addressed. The issue of trash recycling and collection, I know you touched on it in the past, but it really needs to happen at each building separately. There needs to be waste removal addressed from both the residential apartments and the proposed restaurants at each building. As a side note, for the past several years, the city has removed on South Street sidewalk trash receptacles because apartment residents occasionally use them for their personal trash. So to avoid that problem, the application should present their waste removal plans for each building. As regards to architectural review, a formal review of each building in the project and formally accept or reject those proposed plans, each separately. A note on drawing A203, the north elevation of the 36 Elm Street building identifies the wall as existing painted concrete and all other wall elevations as existing unpainted concrete. And we'd like to know what is the proposed finish of all those walls. The wall that I can see from our building at 3 Broad Street, there's a note on drawing A204, the south elevation of the 45 South Street building identifies the wall as existing painted brick. The wall is in fact wood frame with asphalt siding that resembles brick. As one of the most visible facades from the future market center, the proposed wall finish should be clarified. And I have a copy of that for you.
Thanks, sir. Anybody else wish to speak on this application? Welcome back, stranger.
It seems like just yesterday I was in front of all of you. But I'm actually here.
Can you just state your name?
I'm Jim Siblon, and I'm the president of the EDC of Warren County. I'm actually here because somebody needs to stand up the way Ed would have. And every day I'm reminded of the legacy that I try to carry in the role at the EDC. But one of his crowning achievements was securing the very first DRI award from the state. And I think the process, the deliberative process that you're going through would make him proud. This morning I was in Albany at the chamber meeting of the Capital District. And I think probably 6 or 8 people came up and asked me about this project. This is not just of interest to our residents here. This is not just of interest historically because Ed helped make it happen. It's a fundamental part of the economic future of Northern New York. And I feel like sometimes we lose that in the minutia that we have to deal with. But I wanted to remind you just how important it is. It's important emotionally because it signaled what I consider to be the culmination of the swing around for not only Glens Falls, but the entire region. It is important because it is the visual signal to the community that we're committed to a future, a brighter, sustainable future that is a better version than even those that we've had in our illustrious past. But it's also going to help us address the most gaping need we have in our economy. Every day since I took this job, there have been between 1,500 and 2,000, sometimes as many as 3,000 job openings in Warren County. Today, the number of housing units of any type, at any price point, do not add up to 800 in Warren County. If you remove those to be less than $500,000, there are less than 200 homes for sale in all of Warren County, and there are less than 200 apartment units available. What that means is if we were successful at finding people to fill the thousands of open jobs, we would have no place for them to live. This is so important to make sure that the economic vitality that we've invested in does not accrue to another community. If we're going to grow into the best version of ourselves, we must be able to house the people who want to be here. I know this is hard. It's hard for people to understand how, if our population has stayed static over all this period of time, can we be in such a housing shortage. But it's because housing has changed. The densities have changed. What used to be in the 1970s a household of more than 5, typically in Glens Falls City, is now less than 2. Same amount of square feet supporting less than half the population. We can't do anything about those demographics. We can only address capacity. And I applaud you for taking the time to do this well and to serve the community. Now, we have to build beyond this project, but I hope that the literal hundreds of other units that are going to have to go up in the rest of Warren County will be able to follow the same process that you have, which is to hear the community, to problem solve in the best possible way, and to find the outcome that serves us going forward. I will say, we're also a neighbor. We moved the EDC to be on South Street. We did this consciously to be a part of this entire movement, and we stand here ready to support you, the city, and the entire community as we use this as the pivot point for all the future development that promises to come.
Anybody want to try and follow that up? No? Hearing none? Libby?
So my only comment as it relates to both the architectural review and the site plan review was that I believe that the city was benefited by the use of its consultants, not the least of which was the city engineer, as well as the architectural consultants that are available. I believe that the architectural review provisions of the code apply when there is an absence of a site plan application whereby a building permit is submitted. We have not submitted for our building permit. This is the review we're doing in advance. So I just wanted to say procedurally, I don't believe a step has been missed, but we look forward to continuing the conversations with the city.
Yeah,
Thank you.
And we are doing site plan review now.
That's correct.
That's what we're in the middle of. Okay. I think that the only thing that we had discussed was that it didn't apply as parking mix for existing buildings downtown.
That's correct.
I think that was what.
That's what does not apply. That's right.
Okay. Mr. Brown, I will defer to you first this time.
Regarding site plan review, I have no new comments.
Okay. Thank you. I will start with Mr. Lanfear.
I really, I'm going to follow suit with Mr. Brown. I don't really have any conflicts at all at this point.
Okay. Mr. Belvin, anything? No? Ms. Kelly?
No comment.
Nothing on your end as well? Ms. Marie?
No, I think you've answered all of our questions. I don't have any
Feels
questions.
good, right?
Thank you.
Mr. Gardner?
This is just site plan, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that's architecture.
Yeah.
My other question is, was it according to plans for 31 South Street, then will the farmer's market be available to next year to use this farmer's market?
So I think that I think the question is, what is our construction schedule plan? Is that really what you're asking me? So I think Larry Novik's here and can speak, I think, to the construction staging. We've always considered this to be a 2-phased project. And I think he can speak a little bit more to that about what it looks like.
Hi, this
So what we've said is that this is going to be a two-phase project, that the first phase will commence this winter sometime, will take approximately 12 months. So the next farmer's market season, the summer season, we will not be displacing, because the first phase does not involve building in the lot where the farmer's market currently sits. So for next summer, the farmer's market is not impacted at all. And then our goal is to work with the city. Obviously, we don't have control over the construction of the new pavilion facility, but we want to work with the facility to make sure that the farmer's market is well accommodated for the following summer, the summer of 2024, and that we do not move over onto that site until that accommodation is achieved.
Okay, thank you. Yes, fine.
You're welcome.
Okay, thanks, Tom. I think the only other question, I know you had a question about the raised sidewalk, and I know a couple of people had asked that. With that, and I found
Oh, fantastic.
there's one here in the city. If anybody's driven down Fire Road, coming from Glen Street past the YMCA, that's exactly what's there on the top of the knoll. They've raised, it's almost like a speed bump, but it's significantly wider, and at the very top of it is the crosswalk.
There's two of them.
Yeah, there's another one that's farther down, but this one is specifically where the crosswalk is, so that there's not a cut in the sidewalk to get down to the street level. They brought the street up to the sidewalk level. So I know Peter had asked that question before, and I happened to be driving around the other day, and I went, that's it, it's right here. So there is one here locally, and it does work very well. It slows traffic significantly in that area. They put it in specifically for people going from the YMCA to Crandall Park to use the pickleball courts and the tennis courts and those kinds of things. And it does work very, very well. So just
Kelsey's saying ours is similar.
Yep, put that to bed there. So, Peter, was that it?
That's it.
Okay. All right, so I think we are at a point where we want to look at seeker at this point. And I know that the seeker long form has been submitted.
Right.
So this is where Karen earns her money.
So the application, this is a full environmental assessment form, coordinated review. In preparation for the coordinated review, the city sent out the notice, the secret declaration of intent to the lead agency. Those notices were sent on August 17th, 2022, which starts our 30-day clock. The notices were sent to the City of Glens Falls Zoning Board of Appeals, Glens Falls Industrial Development Agency, Glens Falls Local Development Corporation, Glens Falls Common Council, New York State Historic Preservation Office, New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, Warren County Department of Planning and Development, New York State Department of Housing and Community Renewal, New York State Empire Development Corporation, New York State Department of Health, and New York State Department of State. We received only 3 responses where no one objected to the planning board serving as the lead agency for the coordinated review. No one else responded, which means they don't object. So tonight we have to review, the applicant has submitted the full environmental assessment form, part 1. I hope everyone's had an opportunity to review all 14 pages, because when we do our part 2 review, which is the board's obligation, is to go through and review all of the questions that are referenced in part 1. I'm going to read them out loud. I have checked if I believe the answer is no or yes. If the answer is yes, then we have to review certain sub-questions underneath. So number 1, does the project have an impact on land? Will the proposed action involve construction on or physical alteration of the land surface of the proposed site? The answer to that is yes. So the board now has to answer, is the proposed action may involve construction on land where depth to the water table is less than 3 feet? No or small impact?
No.
B, will the proposed action may involve construction on slopes 15% or greater? The part 1 application says that it's between 0 and 10%, therefore no or small impact. Will the proposed action involve construction on land where bedrock is exposed or generally within 5 feet of existing ground surface? No or small impact. The proposed action may involve the excavation and removal of more than 1,000 tons of natural material. minus cubic yards, which is multiplied by 1.4, so the answer is no or small impact. The proposed action may involve construction that continues for more than 1 year or in multiple phases. The answer is yes, but it's no or small impact. The applicant states it's 2 phases. Phase 1 is approximately 11 months. The Part 1 application says Phase 2 is approximately 6 months. The proposed action may result in increased erosion, whether from physical disturbance or vegetation removal, including from treatment by herbicides. No. The proposed action is or may be located within a coastal erosion hazard area. No. Section 2, impact on geological features. The proposed action may result in the modification or destruction of or inhibit access to any unique or unusual landforms on the site, such as cliffs, dunes, minerals, fossils, or caves. The answer is no. We move on to section 3. Impacts on surface water. The proposed action may affect one or more wetlands or other surface water bodies, such as streams, rivers, ponds, or lakes. The answer is no. And if you're following along on Part 1, you're referring to Part 1, D2, E2. Section 4, impact on groundwater. The proposed action may result in new or additional use of groundwater or may have the potential to introduce contaminants to groundwater or aquifer. The answer to this section is yes, therefore we look at the subcategories. The proposed action may require new water supply wells or create additional demand on supplies from existing water supplies. No or small impact. Water supply demand from the proposed action may exceed safe and sustainable withdrawal capacity rate of the local supplier aquifer. No or small impact. The proposed action may allow or result in residential uses in the area without water and sewer services. No or small impact. The proposed action may include or require wastewater discharge to the groundwater. No or small impact. The proposed action may result in the construction of water supply wells in locations where groundwater is or suspected to be contaminated. No or small impact. The proposed action may require the bulk storage of petroleum or chemical products over groundwater or an aquifer. No. The proposed action may involve commercial application of pesticides within 100 feet of potable drinking water or irrigation resources. No. Moving on to section 5, impacting on flooding. The proposed action may result in development on land subject to flooding. The answer is no. We move on to section 6. Impact on air. The proposed action may include a state-regulated air emission source. The answer is no. We move on to section 7. Impact on plants and animals. The proposed action may result in loss of flora or fauna. No, this is an urban development. We move on to section 8. Impact on agricultural resources. The proposed action may impact agricultural resources. Again, no, this is urban development. We are not in an agricultural area. Section 9, impact on aesthetic resources. The land use of the proposed action are obviously different from or in sharp contrast to current land use patterns between the proposed project and scenic or aesthetic resource. No, again, the answer is this is an urban infill. Section 10, impact on historic or archaeological resources. The proposed action may occur in or adjacent to a historic or archaeological resource. The answer is yes. We now look at the subcategories. The proposed action may occur wholly or partially within or substantially contiguous to any buildings, archaeological site, or district which is listed on the National or State Register of Historic Places or that has been determined by the Commissioner of the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation to be eligible for listing on the State Register of Historic Places. The answer is no or small impact. One of the buildings has been approved for designated as sensitive for archaeological sites on the New York State Historic Preservation Office, SHPO, SHPO, Archaeological Site Inventory, no or small impact. The proposed action may occur wholly or partially within or substantially contiguous to an archaeological site not included on the New York State SHPO inventory, no or small impact. Moving on to section 11, impact on open space and recreation. The proposed action may result in a loss of recreational opportunities or a reduction of an open space resource as designated in any adopted municipal open space plan. The answer is no. We move on to section 12. Impact on critical environmental areas. The proposed action may be located within or adjacent to a critical environmental area. No. We move on to section 13. Impact on transportation. The proposed action may result in a change to existing transportation systems. No. We move on to section 14. Impact on energy. The proposed action may cause an increase in the use of any form of energy. No. We move on to section 15. Impact on noise, odor, and light. The proposed action may result in an increase in noise, odors, or outdoor lighting. No. The application specifically states that no off-site illumination is proposed, dark sky compliant fixtures, and any new lighting will conform to the city code. Moving on to 16, impact on human health. The proposed action may have an impact on human health from exposure to new or existing sources of contaminants. The answer is no. We move on to section 17, consistency with community plans. The proposed action is not consistent with adopted land use plans. No. Move on to section 18, consistency with community character. The proposed project is inconsistent with the existing community character. The answer is no. Now moving on to part three, where we did see, we did not specify there was any significant impact. So we have to describe the magnitude, so I don't believe that any of the sections where we answered no or small impact, if there's any significant or severe magnitude. So based upon review of part 1 and now a complete review of the part 2 application, I believe the board could make a determination that the project will result in no significant adverse impacts on the environment, and therefore an environmental impact statement not be prepared, and the board could issue a negative declaration. So now you need a motion.
That would be a type 1, correct?
Yes, it's a type 1, yes.
So then I would make a motion that the Glens Falls Planning Board hereby accepts lead agency status for the applicant identified as Spring City Development Corporation or Group LLC, owners of 31, 41, and 45 South Street, and 31 and 36 Elm Street. The board has determined the action to be a type 1 action. We have reviewed the long form environmental assessment form, and upon documentation and discussion, we issue a negative declaration. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Any opposed? Motion carries. Therefore, I need to sign it now.
Sure.
That's okay. I can sign it now.
Right here.
Signature. She's right here. She's hiding. Libby.
I was waiting to see your face.
I'm busily taking my notes.
Yep. So then, based on that, I believe that we're ready to make a motion on site plan review. So, that having been said, I would make a motion that the Glens Falls Planning Board, acting as the Board of Site Plan Review, hereby grants site plan approval for the project identified as Spring City Development Group LLC, located at 31, 41, and 45 South Street, and 31 and 36 Elm Street, as presented at several meetings of the Glens Falls City Planning Board, but as of today's date for October 2022. We do not have any conditions that I'm aware of that were placed on this. They have updated their plans based on the review of the city.
What he's asking is close the public hearing. Close the public
I
hearing.
will close the public hearing. Based on the review of the city fire department, the city engineer, and this planning board, I would put forth this motion, and I will look for a second.
Second.
I think I would ask for a roll call vote on this one. You would,
Commissioner, Peter Hardy
Yes.
and Rich Moore
Yes.
and, Rick Fuller. Sorry.
Sorry.
No, you're okay, that's not okay. Art Alden, Keith Andrew.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time and all your effort. We look forward to seeing you again. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
All right. Old business out of the way. All right, we will move on to new business. Our first item on our new business agenda, sign review 2020 or 22009, I'm sorry, 0009, pursuant to the city code, chapter 180-6, AJ Signs, representing the owner of Hudson Headwater Health Network, is seeking a sign review and approval for additional signage located at 38 LaRose Street. Is there anyone here representing Hudson Headwaters tonight?
Well, if the board, are you looking for a presentation from the applicant? Or
Typically, if there's not somebody here.
Okay. You can table it. Where's Catherine?
Kathy?
Catherine, did you hear from Hudson Headwaters if they were coming tonight?
Supposed to be.
Okay.
Maybe you could, push them down on the application.
I can, yeah, we can put that one aside and move on to the next item on the agenda.
Another sign.
Yep. So we will skip over that one for now. Sign review 220010 pursuant to City Code Section 180-6, Saxton Sign Corporation, representing Glens Street Associates, is seeking sign board review and approval for additional signage located at 86 Glen Street. Is there anyone here for that? Good afternoon. Guess we're getting closer to good evening. You could, if you could state your name for the records.
Darren Katz with Saxon Signs. I'm Dan Grassman with Morgan Stanley.
Great, thank you. Can you just go through your application for us and explain to us what's going on here?
We're seeking relief on a second wall sign for the property at 86 Glen Street. Currently, other tenants in the building have multiple wall signs. I'm not from the area, but I did have a chance to drive by earlier today, and I have to say that if I ever saw a sign that needs both sides to have signage, that is a very confusing way to drive around and try to find something. We're just asking relief on the second side. We believe it's in coordination with the rest of the neighborhood and the rest of the businesses in the area.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this application? Seeing none, I will start with.
Can I give just a quick couple of comments?
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm Morgan Stanley. So
Absolutely.
we're the actual tenants.
You're the ones who are mostly affected by this.
We are, so it's our name that we're trying to get up in onto there. So I am Dan Grasby, I'm the manager of the Glens Falls office. And thank you all for your time entertaining this proposal. Just want to make some comments. So I guess taking a few steps back, we moved from 20 Maple, if you're familiar with that location. So we were there for, that was a brokerage house since the 50s, really. And if you know the history of that, it was the Crandall's carriage house that eventually, it was actually Spencer Trask's group that started as a brokerage place. So there's been a brokerage house in downtown Glens Falls certainly since the 50s. Kind of a proud side of it. Tough for us to move. So it was a beautiful building. Just ended up being too tight for us. So we moved, started looking around. We did look outside of the town, but in dealing with corporate Morgan Stanley, they came up with a whole bunch of locations. But I said, hey, we really want to be in the downtown side of it. And if there is something that's like a financial district, if you will, in the downtown side of it, you know, this is kind of where we wanted to be. We wanted to stick into that. That's where people are used to coming here to see us. We did consider a bunch of locations, from out on Ray to out at exit 18 to one of those that, again, really focused on we wanted to be downtown. Found 86 Glen, and we actually have moved in now. So we're out of 20 Maple, and we're over in the new building. So going through certainly some growing pains. Pretty major endeavor getting out of the old office into the new one. But I think this will be some of the finishing touch with the exterior, Morgan Stanley on the exterior of the building on the two sides. And again, you really can't see you kind of need it on both sides, I guess I would say, on that part of it. No, I think it's no doubt a positive for the city. And I think the city's shown its ability to retain the top wealth management company globally, right? I don't know if you heard, Elon Musk today it's Morgan Stanley who's backing his deal and buying Twitter. So it's pretty nice to have Morgan Stanley kind of prominent here in the downtown side of it. And it really is in line, the gentleman had mentioned, with what is the exterior signage and kind of complements what's there from NBT. In this, I guess, so just a final comment. Again, I'm psyched living in the area, doing things in the area side of it. We can add downtown Glens Falls to the Morgan Stanley locations. In my opinion, this ends up looking a lot better even than our headquarters in Glens Falls looks better than, in my opinion, our headquarters in downtown New York City on 1585 Broadway. So again, we're just happy, and it's good to be here, good in this area. We don't want to be in Saratoga, we want to be here. So
great.
A couple of those comments for all of you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Is there anybody else from the public who would like to speak on this application? Seeing none, I will start with our architectural consultant, Mr. Brown.
I have no concerns.
Great. I will start with Mr. Carter.
I was wondering how bright the lights are and how long, what the hours were.
I would say we would do whatever hours you would approve. Generally, the lights would usually go off in a downtown area. I would say midnight-ish. I don't know that he has wishes to keep them on all night, but he would definitely be subject to any requests or anything from the board. As far as brightness, the sign, I don't know the exact luminance, but it's basically the lights will be 5 inches back from the face. It will be white acrylic pushed out from that face, which will diffuse the light to kind of give it a halo-ish effect. So it will not be a very direct casting light in any way. Any direct casting light will actually be on the actual box of the sign.
I don't think there's any regulation for lights on something like that.
Right.
Well, we just did enact a new lighting ordinance, but off the top of my head, I can't remember if it's turn off, or that might be for residential.
I believe it was for residential. I don't believe that was for
No,
downtown.
it's not for downtown.
Right. Okay. Do we happen to know, does the MBT one stay on all night?
I don't know.
I know I come out of the Civic Center fairly late at night, and you can see it, but I don't, I've not been through there. I can honestly say I've not been through there at 2 a.m. So
And we could get that answered, but we won't keep it anymore.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm sure they have their, on a timer, and we can probably facilitate finding out.
Facilitate
And timing it to the same hours.
You'd be amenable to that?
Yeah, the same hours as MPT, absolutely.
That's exactly what I was gonna say, that hours should be the same. Other than that, I have
Great,
no
thank you.
Bridget?
No questions, no comments.
Perfect.
I think it looks great. Again, if it's, the same timer that's usually in buildings to kind of work together with that, so, we've never had an issue with the MBT sign.
Right.
With the bright, that the hours on that, so as long as it follows something along those lines, I think it looks great.
Perfect, thank you.
I assume we're using LED?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, those were basically my comments, and I think as long as we're, as long as we can get you, agree to tie into whatever MBTs is.
They would most likely be on separate
Right.
timers, but it
Right,
would
I mean,
be
you
the
know,
same, yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
time, whatever their time clock is. I mean, if theirs happens to be on 24, that's fine, and, or overnight, I think we're okay with that. It is in our downtown business district, so if it is if it is an overnight
Yeah,
thing.
the pool insurance is like all the time too.
Yeah, and the civic center's on all night too.
Yeah.
I know that's, I have driven by that one.
Well, just thank you for staying in the city.
Oh, sure, yeah, I know, it's
Business
important.
here, we're all taxpayers here in the city. They gave the Hoffmans a chance to renovate that other building, which I was just in yesterday.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And, again, thank you for staying in the
Yeah,
city.
you're welcome. It was bittersweet moving out of that building.
And if you want to find out how much stuff you've got after 50 years, move on.
Oh, tell me about it. No doubt.
Excellent. Do you want to put this one together?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion that the Glens Falls Planning Board, acting as the Board of Sign Review, approve the special permit application of the Saxton Sign Corp. For the premises identified as
86.
86.
86, right.
Thank you. 86 Glen Street, specifically for the sign use and subject to no conditions.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, thank
Very
you all.
good, thank you all.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time today. We'll move on to, has anyone from Hudson Headwaters or AJ Sign arrived? Do not believe so, so we will continue to move down. Our next item on our agenda is the subdivision review, one we haven't had in quite some time. 22-0007 DKC Holding Incorporated, care of Larry Clute, seeking approval of a lot line adjustment, transferring 315 square feet from tax map number 309.15-2, commonly known as 3 Taylor Street, to tax map number 309.15-4, commonly known as 24 Woodward. Is there anyone here representing this application? And I know you're sitting in the back, Matt, so give me.
My name is Matt Webster with Van Duzen and Steve's Land Surveyors. I'm here on behalf of our client, DKC Holding. Hate to disappoint, but it's not full subdivision, but just a little lot line adjustment between two parcels that the same client owns. Essentially what happened here is that the lot lines were not very well defined in the past. So of course a porch, a deck, and a whole bunch of other items were built over the property line. Now that that has been defined and the once vacant lot is now being built on Woodard Street, the client would just like to do a little lot line adjustment so they don't have to cut the porch off. So
That's it.
that's it, yeah.
Is there anyone from the public who would wish to speak on this application? Seeing none, I will start with our architectural consultant, Mr. Brown.
No concerns.
No concerns. I will start over here with Mr. Lampier.
I don't know, sounds pretty cut and dry.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went out there. This has been this way for, this stuff has been there forever. It's just people didn't realize that.
Yes. Nobody actually bothers figuring out where their boundary lines are before they build porches. So,
Especially when you own both
No,
properties.
the
There you
building
go.
is there, the fences across the the property?
Yep. Now the fence and everything has been remedied, or is being remedied. But
I
of
was
course,
there just like an hour ago.
so yeah, the plan is to remedy the fence at least. But they just want to put the boundary right around the porch.
Great, make everybody happy.
Richard?
No questions.
Rich?
Any questions?
No. I really didn't have any either. I mean, I understand how these things happen, especially like you said, when you own both properties. It's not a problem. I'm just going to build on my own porch. And then all of a sudden you decide, hey, I want to sell that piece of property. Whoops, I built over the porch.
There you go.
But yeah, I think this is a decent compromise. And again, I don't see any, it's from one owner to the same owner. So this, you know, as you said, it's not a full-blown subdivision, but that's how we have to treat it in our code. So that's the way we're looking at it. If we have no other objections, we have a speaker on this.
With respect to seeker, I would classify this as a type 2 action, as it is the granting of a lot line adjustment, therefore no further action is required.
Great, thank you very much.
Excuse me, do you have to have agreement with the 1 Taylor Street too?
Say that again?
They have to have an agreement other property? They get the transfer?
Oh, none of the adjoining properties are affected.
Yeah, no, it didn't, it doesn't look like it affected any of those. The original lot line went right through the property line. Yeah, right through there, and they're just cutting out and around
Cutting
it.
it out in normal.
I was surprised when this when I was out there, but this, the building, it says proposed house, but that's up in there.
Mhm.
It's already, so this was approved, and that house was approved and everything, would not, no one realizing that line went through the other house?
Correct. Well, it wouldn't typically come to us. I mean,
So that was
a
supposed to
single,
be codes or?
yeah, a single family residence wouldn't come to this board. So that was just done with building permit. And now it's coming down to the point where that house, that new house is getting sold, and the new property owner goes, I don't want to live your porch. So I'm sure that's where all of this came from, correct?
Yes, for the building permit, they had needed a survey.
Right.
And then they got a survey and found out where the property line was.
Funny how that works. Do you see that very often?
A time or two.
Then I would make a motion that the Glens Falls Planning Board, acting as the Board of Subdivision Review, hereby grants subdivision approval for the applicant DKC Holdings Incorporated, care of Larry Clute, for the properties at 3 Taylor Street and 24 Woodward Street as presented at the meeting of 4 October 2022. Second. All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? No opposed. All set.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've seen it happen before. And honestly, we don't get a whole lot of subdivision stuff here. We work kind of out of properties. Our next item on the agenda is site plan review application number 220015 pursuant to the city code chapter 220-17-C subsection 27. Thomas Osika, owner of tax map number 302.20-22-5, commonly known as 5 Pine Street, seeking site plan approval, review and approval to convert the building's use from office to its previous dual use of both office and residential. Is there anyone here representing this application? Good afternoon.
Good evening. I'm Tom Osiga. So the owner of 5 Pine Street. Currently the property is for sale. We started the process of selling as a commercial property, and the market's been a bit slow. When I initially bought the property, it was a mixed-use property, commercial downstairs, apartments upstairs. So I approved or applied for dual use. And since then, the project's evolved a little bit, so we didn't know if it could be considered for a multifamily dwelling as well, or designation. Just trying to move the sale of the property along.
Sure.
And there are multiple properties on the same block that are apartments, residential.
Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on this application? Seeing nobody jumping up right in front of us. Let's start with Mr. Brown.
Just curious, I saw the for sale sign. Is it still on the market?
Yes.
And the parking is adequate for those replacement functions?
Yes.
Offices?
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Yeah, there's 7 spots available in the back.
That's it.
Very good. Mr. Gray?
They have, in the narrative, they said, a full bathroom upstairs and a half bathroom downstairs. Usually a half bathroom doesn't have a shower and tub or something like that.
Yes, we've spoken with a contractor to convert the downstairs half bath into a full bath.
Okay.
So that would be part of the project.
Okay. That's all. Well, you have to, I think you have to, check with the code enforcement, or code enforcement. When you're doing the change over like that, you have to change it with the code enforcement.
Right.
Okay.
So what we'd have to do is you'd have to check with code enforcement to find out, and our zoning administrator can help you out, Kathy Hamlin can help you out with that as well. But again, I believe in the GC1, you're in the right ballpark for that, so I think you're okay there.
Great.
Ms. Mary?
I have no questions.
No questions on this one?
Nope. No questions or comments.
No, pretty straightforward.
Is there any change in ingress and egress as far as being basically a duplex at this point, I guess what you're trying to achieve?
Yes.
Is that correct? Fire escape scenarios like that, are those in place now, or is it something that should be considered to be as part of the project?
There's multiple ways in and out of the building, so I don't think that'll be a problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as far as the parking is concerned, it was the office space before, so you said there's 7 spaces?
Yes.
So that would be more than adequate for what would be, to consider a 2-family house, that would be more than adequate there, so there's no issues over there with drainage or any of that kind of thing. It's a fairly decent area, so I think.
Yeah, we've been there for 20 years, so.
Yeah. All right, as far as seeker goes, I know there's a short form.
Yeah, I would classify this as a type 2 action as it is reuse of a residential or commercial structure or of a structure containing mixed and residential commercial uses where both uses are permitted under the applicable zoning law, therefore no further action is required.
Would anybody like to put forth a resolution for us? Rachel?
I'd like to make a motion that the Glens Falls Planning Board, acting as the Board of Site Plan Review, hereby grant site plan approval for the project identified as 5 Pine Street, Tom Osika, and located at 5 Pine Street, as presented at the meeting of October 4th, 2022.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Next item on the agenda is site plan review 220014 pursuant to City Code Chapter 220-C, subsection 8, Matt Home, owner of tax map number 303.18-19-7, commonly known as 199 to 201 Warren Street, seeking site plan and architectural review to construct a 1-story addition to the existing building for use as commercial restaurant space. Welcome back.
Good evening.
I understand you've been in front of our zoning board.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
And you received all the required zoning variances?
Yes.
Great. Anything new on your project since the last time you were here?
A couple things. The site plan did change a little bit.
Okay.
There was a rear setback that was, we shrunk the building a little bit with respect to the rear setback that was found during the site plan for the restaurant out front, from the front property line. So that encouraged the building to move forward, so we'd have our 14-foot, maintain our 14-foot rear setback. There was a egress point on that site plan for traffic onto the private road. That was discovered that that private road may be subject to change as far as availability for that, so I decided to eliminate that as part of the site plan. So I really can't control that.
Right.
So,
okay.
As a result, we did lose one parking spot, but there's less traffic in and out of there now. So I mean, it might be better because there was concerns regarding vehicles backing up onto Warren Street or onto the sidewalk. So now we've got essentially 3 parking spots for the restaurant. One is going to be an employee, one is handicapped, and the other's most likely a customer. There are other parking spots in the back, by the garage space with the overhead doors. But there's parking inside the garage as well, so for my business.
And as we had discussed previously, there's a significant amount of parking on Warren Street itself.
Yes.
It's out there.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anything else? Any other modifications that have been made since our last time looking at this?
Not that I can recall. There's been, try to keep up with the pace with the whole project and everything, but I think everything's been up to date. There was, so the building for the shop, I haven't applied for the building permit yet, but that did change a little bit. Like I said, we brought that forward and then also pushed it towards that side yard setback, but that's still within the parameters. There's nothing that would need a variance or anything like that.
Nothing would need any additional variance.
No.
All the variances that you would need were granted at the last.
Correct. Yep. The front, the side setbacks, and then also the area for lot coverage was granted.
Okay.
So
good. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this application? Nobody jumped right up for that one. Where did I start last time? You did. I did. Peter, anything for you?
I was wondering about the hours and hours of operation at the restaurant and lighting. They got lights on the drawing, but it doesn't say what the kind of lights. The planners, they don't say what kind of planners to do. So they can maybe film in.
okay. So the hours of operation are currently, from my being there, working there, they're basically open from around 10:30 to around 6 or 7 at night. Maybe like 8 or 9. I don't know. But there's really no defined hours with the business, but I have not seen it exceed those hours. There is existing lighting on the property with the shop. The garage has got halogen lighting, and then that will be maintained throughout, so there should be sufficient lighting, for that lot. And then the restaurant itself will have one light that's going to be added at the rear for the employee door that's going to be added, but there's a window on the side, and I don't really see a whole lot of lighting being added to that. But other than there's conceptual drawings that were provided for that restaurant as part of the packet, hopefully.
It looks like that from looking at that front elevation. You might have a couple of goosenecks that are coming out off the front to shine back onto the.
Yes, there's existing lighting just similar to those as it stands right now, so that we're going to maintain that as well, but they may be obviously new, but the same concept as far as the lighting.
And I think as long as it is all downcast fixtures, not broadcast fixtures, I think we're okay with that.
Okay.
So that driveway to the left of your place. That's a private driveway, so you can't use it?
The road?
Yeah.
That's a private road, yes. And then there was at some point, a right-of-way was given or granted. I don't know, I wasn't privy to that, but I do know that now that's been declared that that is a private road, and so that's not a point that I'm gonna present in front of the board to say that that's gonna be an egress, because I can't do that, because that's not up to me. But that is a private road, and that egress point was allowed to be used, but that is subject to change.
You can't get a permission to use it, because maybe you can get permission to use it, but because the engineer in Tadgett from Warren County suggested one-way traffic from Warren Street in and out to the driveway there.
Okay.
So if you get that permission, that would be a lot better.
I agree, it would, but I can't knowingly sign or enter into this site plan knowing that that is subject to change. I can't. I've had conversations with the property owner, and it's presented in a manner that would not be granted a permanent easement or permanent right of way. That was not an option on the table for the property owner. So therefore I cannot show that here, because that could change. They could change that access for me. So.
So your current site plan doesn't have that as an access?
This current site plan does not have that, no.
That's it? Rachel?
No, I think it looks good. Are these outside, is that outside dining behind it, or are those trees?
I think that's shrubs.
Shrubs?
Oh, that's
Okay,
shrubs,
I
yeah,
was
that's,
thinking-
it's a little green space around the parking spot.
Yeah, no, I think that's gonna look nice.
Thank you. Good.
Are you sticking with the same vinyl color for the?
So yeah, the buildings are gonna be essentially joined now, because there's gonna be a firewall between the restaurant and then the shop, and I wanna incorporate the same color scheme and everything throughout. So the board and bat, what they see on the plans for the garage will be brought onto the restaurant as well. So in the end, it's gonna look like, one building with, multiple uses. Thank you.
Art?
No, it looks great. Looks like you've met all the requirements, and it'll be a great addition to the neighborhood.
Great, thank you.
I concur.
Good.
Thank you.
I had no other comments as well. I think we've addressed pretty much everything that was in our purview. We looked through it and received the zoning variances that we stated, so I think you're good to go. I appreciate your candor in letting us know that you don't have access to that private drive. That
Right.
Everyone had thought it has been that access for many years.
Well, it has a street light.
It has a street light, so, but as it turns out, not necessarily something that you have access to.
Put it this way, I was surprised.
Yes, I can imagine.
When I was notified of that.
I can imagine, so,
absolutely.
but no, I appreciate the amount of effort you put in to come back to us and bring all this stuff back, so.
Right.
As far as seeker goes,
One other thing too,
Oh.
this was referred to the Warren County Planning Board. They have no comment, concur with local board,
Yes.
informal staff comments. Would encourage a discussion with the applicant as to using the front entrance as access in only, given the proximity to the traffic signal at the corner of McDonald and Warren Streets. Given the popularity of food delivery services such as DoorDash, it would appear for all restaurant patrons to use the curb cut from the property onto McDonald Street extension as a safer means to enter the flow of traffic on Warren Street with a signalized intersection. These comments were repeated from the area variance. With respect.
but we've already noted
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that's not really.
Right, it's not possible. They can note it.
Yep.
With respect to seeker, I will classify this as an unlisted action. Therefore, the board is required to review the Part 2 impact assessment. Number one, will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulation? No. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of land? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? No. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in an existing level of traffic or affecting infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? No. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No. Will the proposed action impact existing public-private water supplies? No. Will the proposed action impact existing public-private wastewater treatment utilities? No. Will the proposed action impair the quality or character of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources such as wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, or fauna? No. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? The answer is no. Therefore, the board could issue a negative declaration.
Then I would make a motion that the Glens Falls Planning Board hereby accepts lead agency status for the applicant, Matt Hummel, owner or agent of the property located at 199 to 201 Warren Street. The board has determined the action to be an unlisted action and has reviewed the short form environmental assessment form and upon documentation and discussion issues a negative declaration. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
And opposed? Yeah. And, do we have any further discussion on the project? Good to go? I would make a motion that the Glens Falls Planning Board, acting as the Board of Architectural and Site Plan Review, hereby grants architectural and site plan approval for the project identified as Matt Hummel, owner of property located at 199 to 201 Warren Street, as presented at the meeting of 4 October 2022, subject to no amendments or conditions.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? I think you're all set.
Thank you.
I think you're done with this.
Appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. Okay. Our next item on the agenda is another site plan and architectural review. Site plan 220016 and architectural review number 220014. Pursuant to City Code Chapter 220-18-C, Lapan Enterprises LLC, owner of tax map number 303.14-1-12, commonly known as 142 Dix Avenue, seeking site plan and architectural review and approval for a new use. Is there anyone here representing this application? Good afternoon, Mr. Vickers. How are you?
Good afternoon, Mr. Is it afternoon still?
Yeah, it is.
Evening.
Mr. Lapan.
I'm Neil Leibowitz. I'm the attorney for Lapan Enterprises LLC, and this is Beecher Lapan. In the back row is his wife, Christina. They are the owners of Lapan Enterprises, as well as a related entity, BHL Enterprises LLC, which is known as Lapan's Precision. Before we actually go into the application, I do have a couple of preliminary matters. Because of the speed in filing, there were a couple of errors in the documents that were filed. So I'm handing out an error sheet that I will pass around, all 13 copies if you can pass it that way. One of them just corrects a measurement in from survey data And the other, more importantly, when Ms. Judd gets to it, corrects two errors, inadvertent errors, I should say, in the short form environmental assessment form, so those definitely want to be considered. In addition, just to avoid interrupting the presentation more, there is a supplementary exhibit for this property. In reviewing the materials, you may have noticed reference to a compressor room without anything other than the name of it visible. So here is an additional photographic exhibit showing this portion of the building. Again, if Mr. Cardy would pass this around so that everyone would get a copy of it.
That's that one that's on the backside of the building, right?
Yeah, yep, that little one.
And so, as I say, I will make a brief presentation, and we're certainly open to all of your questions. Again, the application is for a new use in an existing developed property. There is no intention to engage in any land development activities at all with regards to the building or the site itself. The property is located in a general commercial 2 district. Permissible primary uses are service activities as well as offices. LePan Enterprises LLC, which is the applicant and not the owner of the property, unlike the notice for the agenda for this meeting states, it is not the owner. Its intention is to, assuming all approvals are received, to purchase the property and rent it to an affiliated entity. That affiliated entity is BHL Enterprises or LePan Precision. It's a brother-sister control group entity. Same ownership, both of the LePans own it. And with regards to LePan Precision's ownership, its activity, real estate rental, is a service activity. As far as LePan Precision goes, the operating entity under the North American Industrial Classification Code system, it's a specialty trade contractor, which is also a service activity. What do? Well, they install, maintain, and repair heating, ventilation, air conditioning, cooling, and chilling equipment for residential users, industrial users, and commercial users. So it's their intention to use the property primarily as its office space. The former garage in it will be used for storage of inventory and consumables, inventory being repair parts that are just off-the-shelf items you need, and also as a small repair workshop for items they can't repair at the customer's premises that they need to come back and use specialized tools or testing equipment. Now, to kind of review the property itself, it's 0.53 acres, square footage, it's 23,077.71. Minimum size lot in this district for use is 10,000 square feet. Minimum width in this district for a use is 100 feet of frontage. This has 153.88 feet. The setbacks in this property are fairly common. 20 feet in the front yard setback, 15 feet on each of the side yard setbacks, and 15 feet in the rear yard setback. There isn't an issue with regards to the westerly side setback or the front or back as the new survey makes clear, and even the old survey that the emphasis had. The issue, one of the issues certainly is that there is an encroachment on the east side setback, which is where the speed shop is. I think it's CNS Speed Shop, or it used to be years ago. And I think you have to delve into the history of this property. At least from the assessment records, it goes back to at least 1950, if not older. At that time, it may very well have been a conforming property, or it may have been part of a property that was subdivided. But in which case, it would be a non-conforming encroachment. At this point, it has just continued.
Pre-existing.
Yes, yeah. And by the same token, it's there.
Yes.
That's the reality of it. The oldest portion of that encroachment relates to an old one-story, two-bay cement block garage, which was incorporated into the existing building. That's what lies primarily in this area of encroachment, although when the renovations were done, the compressor room and part of the office space is also in that area, although they did shrink that area of encroachment. With regards to parking and loading areas, the intention is to load at the front of the building where the two overhead doors are, and that can be moved certainly easily. You know, the parking area in terms of the number of spots you need under the zoning ordinance, as you all know, is going to be determined by the square footage in the building, which in this case is 2140, and also the number of employees the occupant has, which in this case is 14. If you classify the property as a general office, only 21 spots are needed. If, on the other hand, it's seen as a retail establishment, because after all, they are selling to residential customers as well as industrial, commercial, and they are end users, then based on the square footage figure that you need for the building, you need 25 spaces. An unused parking plan that was developed by the chairman's firm laid out a plan for parking 40 vehicles without encroaching onto the loading area, which would be permissible. So there seems to be ample parking.
As this was at the owner's property. So it's, you can certainly park 25 vehicles there without any problem at all.
So how's the property going to operate is basically this. It's primarily going to be office space, again, with the incidental storage and repair facility. In terms of foot traffic, there's really nominal usage. You get 1 to 3 customers coming per day, and you have outside salespeople from vendors that visit the establishment 1 to 3 times a week. I mean, collectively. So it's really the employees coming and going, and they will be using the parking area to park their personal property or their personal vehicles if they drive them to and from work. Some employees also use the option of taking their company vehicles home at night and coming back to work. So there will be usage primarily by the employees of the business. As far as, there's one thing I was going to say. In terms of the use itself, except for the employees that are bringing their company vehicles home, and the fleet consists of 9 cargo vans, 4 pickup trucks, and 3 trailers used for hauling items to or from the office. There will be few vehicles left there at night. Some cargo vans trucks and maybe a trailer or two. And again, that's going to be variable on the use depending upon what the business is.
Right, what we need.
Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak on this application? Seeing none, I will start with Mr. Lanfair.
It actually seems to be, you're basically using the building and the property as it was used prior. You've got storage, you've got vehicles, an office space, so on and so forth. I don't see much of a change in use of any, and or the conditions. I think it's an apt, usage for this building as it stands now.
Great.
Mr. Bell?
Kind of concur that, it's for the zone that it's in, with a small addition, we do a lot of business in the city, in the area, a needed entity, give you a great central location. I think a good use of the property.
Yeah, I'll be happy to see it filled. It's been sitting empty.
Nice. Be nice to move out of Queensbury and get over here.
I hear you. Ms. Murray?
Nope, I agree with everyone else.
No comments.
I'm sorry, I skipped right over it again, Mr. Brown.
No concern.
Start with you.
Yep.
No, I didn't have any issues with it either. Again, having been associated with the property when Mr. Anthony had it, and having my own business just down the street, I'm welcoming to the neighborhood. I think there were a couple of the questions that were brought up, the storage of your vehicles outside, but you're not storing materials or any of that type of thing outside,
No.
so nothing that needs to be fenced
There may
in.
be a trailer that'll come in, or it might have a rooftop unit on it for the night, and then it goes out.
Yeah, but it's not, you're not stockpiling
No.
materials there, the stuff that you
No,
have
I'd like to-
stays pretty much in your vehicles.
Correct.
Or would be inside the delivery bay.
Exactly.
Which you'll have there.
Or Cohen's.
Yeah, exactly. Outside of that, I didn't see any real issues. It's certainly a well put together application. This is probably the most information we've seen on a project of this nature. So it is nice to have all of the pictures that we have there, and having that one for the back area certainly helps to define where that space is. So we do have a seeker.
Yeah, with respect to seeker, I would classify this as an unlisted action. The applicant has completed the short environmental assessment form. The applicant has corrected question 8A and B. We need to review the part 2. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use or planning or zoning regulation? No. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of the use of land? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? No. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affecting existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? No. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No. Will the proposed action impact existing public-private water supplies? No. Will the proposed action impact existing public-private wastewater treatment utilities? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources such as wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, or fauna? No. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No. And will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? No. Based upon a review of the short form part 2, the board could issue a negative declaration.
Then I would make a motion that the Glens Falls Planning Board hereby accepts lead agency status for the applicant. There it was. Which is Lepan Enterprises LLC the owner of tax map number, what is commonly known as 142 Dix Avenue. The board has determined the action to be an unlisted action and has reviewed the short form environmental assessment form submitted, and upon documentation and discussion, issues a negative declaration. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And I would be looking for a motion on both architectural and site plan review.
Sure. I'd like to make a motion that the Glens Falls Planning Board, acting as the Board of Architectural and Site Plan Review, hereby grant both architectural and site plan approval for the project identified as LePan Enterprises LLC and located at 142 Dix Avenue on today's date, as presented at the meeting of October 4, 2022.
Any second? All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion carries as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. One brief thing, just so the record is accurate, there was a corrected sheet for the architectural review and another copy of the picture.
Yes.
So I will give these to your clerk.
Yes.
Over here. There's extra copies here.
Oh, this is, yeah, I don't know who else they would.
Great. Neil, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
All right. Did anyone arrive from Fort Hudson, not Fort Hudson, Hudson Headwaters, regarding our first sign application? I didn't see anyone come in, so I'm assuming that I would make a motion that we table, where am I here, on the first application, sign review 220009.
They may try to make it. Can we push them beyond the market plan? I called them.
I can. You called them and somebody is trying
I'm
to.
going to try, but if nobody gets here in time, so they thought it was 6 apparently.
Okay.
Then they're
All
willing
right,
to
we'll,
take
yeah, we'll sit, all right, we'll sit tight on it then. I guess I should have checked with you. So, the last item on our agenda is sketch plan review pursuant to City Code Section 220-27B, subsection 2. Jeff Flagg, the Economic Development Director representing the City of Glens Falls, is seeking a sketch plan review for the proposed Glens Falls Market Center to be located on tax map number 309.28-1 and 309.28-1-10, commonly known as 51 to 63 South Street. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, Chairman Hall and members of the board. Again, my name is Jeff Flagg. I'm the Economic Development Director for the City of Glens Falls. With me tonight also is some of the design team for the project. Devin Telberg from the Vision Architects, the lead design firm, along with Peter Loyola and Scott Miller. Peter anyway, he's around here somewhere, with landscape architects working with him. As the chairman said, this is we're asking for the sketch plan review to give you a first look at this. A little bit of quick background. As Jim Siplon said with respect to the South Street project, the Spring City Development Bonaccio project, for which we'll approve the site plans this evening. This project, along with that, really represents in many ways sort of the capstone of the legacy of Ed Bartholomew's vision of redevelopment. The South Street being sort of the last bastion of sort of downtown in dire need of revision and revitalization. So the $10 million DRI that the city received in 2017 really was focused, as a result of that, was focused on the South Street corridor. And with an idea of connecting South Street, once it was completed, won't even be completed by this project, but once it is finally to sort of reconnect that to Glen Street and the rest of the already revitalized and vital parts of Glen Street and Maple and the rest of the downtown area. Our project, as you probably know, and one of the reasons we wanted to engage in a sort of a first look at this was because there have been a number of different iterations of this building sort of bandied about. There was a first preliminary design that was done by JMZ Architects back in 2019. The subsequent to, right on the heels of my appointment to this position in the beginning of last year in 2021, the city put out an RFP for design firms to sort of come up with a more specific design. Used that original design as a sort of a basic framework from which to begin. We realized that several things had sort of worked against us in the course of the last 5 years, one of which was time. And commensurate with that was all the crises that have arisen in the last 3 or 4 years. Some macro conditions, things like COVID, which held up the process for some time. Obviously, budget constraints have become an issue. And of course, the micro problem that we ran into in Glens Falls, of course, was the extraordinarily untimely death of Ed Bartholomew himself. So we are committed as a city, even though this project, the DRI, has run through now, well, in the process of the third administration that is sort of working on this, of trying to come up with a design that works. And the three basic criteria or goals, I think, that we're looking at for this building are to develop a facility, first, that's as flexible as possible. As I was talking about the costs of looking at this building, the original design plans were probably somewhere in the vicinity of $2.5 to $3 million. At least that was what was sort of identified in the DRI that was submitted, the proposal that was submitted to the state. We're now looking at a structure that's probably going to be upwards of $4 million. So obviously, that's probably not a surprise to anyone here. You folks are dealing with building projects constantly. So that's one of the things we need to make sure we can do, is to make sure that this building was as flexible as possible. It can be used for as many events as possible. The second major condition that we had, or goal that we had, was to create a space that's as sustainable as possible. As you probably know, between the time the DRI was passed or awarded and now, the CLCPA, the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, was passed in 2019, which really mandates, certainly on a municipal level, a much more rigorous environmental standards, sustainability standards. So we're trying to sort of adhere to that to the extent humanly possible, while keeping the building as comfortable as possible. We want it to be able to be used year-round to the extent possible. And then, of course, the third goal we have to do is, simply as our fiduciary responsibility as municipal officials, certainly the administration, the common council, is to make sure that we are very aware of costs and the budget. Obviously, we have some limitations simply based on the amount of funding that's available to us from the DRI. We have a little bit of flexibility there. But by and large, we are trying to hew as closely as we can to the original budget that were given to us. One of the great challenges in publicly funded projects, in this case DRI funded projects, is that as costs have gone up, the awards that we have received from the state have not gone up commensurate to those. So while the costs have gone up, the awards stay the same. So that's one of the things we're trying to do. So on the heels of all that, this facility has had perhaps as many as 6 different iterations from the initial one I had mentioned in 2019. After Ed Bartholomew passed away, Mayor Hall had created a DRI working group who worked, I would say, tirelessly on sort of coming up with a variety of designs. Obviously, we were working with the various projects of the DRI, but this was one of the most important, because we do think that this will be an important anchor for the sort of the end of South Street there. And so we think we've come up with a project that sort of fulfills all the goals that we have. And with no further ado, I'll let the design team talk a little bit more about the project. And I can obviously answer questions as well.
Hi, my name is Devin Telberg. I'm the project architect from Envision Architects. We were awarded this project and so grateful to be able to work on this with you. We try to listen to all the stakeholders and include everybody's important factors into the design, and we want this to be something unique and special for your community.
Yeah, so Peter Loyola, CLA site, we're landscape architects and civil engineers, and very excited to be part of this. What I think has morphed into a very special project. The building itself has morphed into something other than this big rectangle, and we have taken the lead on the site to incorporate that organic form to create what I think is going to be a really iconic flexible space for the Market Center. We have some site plans that we presented to you, and I want to go through that because as a sketch, we understand that, you know, we're first in the process here, and want to hear from the board in terms of whatever their review is on this, and take whatever comments, you know, to heart. We were given the building as a birch leaf, essentially, and 5,900 square feet. We have a 0.66 acre site. Right sizing this building was really important because we wanted to make the pedestrian space around it, which we have about now 23,000 square feet of pedestrian space around the building, and to be multifunctional. So we also wanted to incorporate, as Jeff mentioned, you know, sustainability. So we're proposing porous pavement, really reducing the footprint on stormwater with a bioretention planting area, and the leaves actually are functional porous pavement to aid in stormwater reduction. As part of the site plan, we spoke with the fire chief, Chief Shremo, and we did a diagram of the two structures that they were very interested in us doing a diagram for, just to show that two of the pump truck and I think it was the aerial ladder. So we did a turning radius analysis just to make sure that this building would accommodate that emergency access and vehicle, and he signed off on that. There's plenty of space in short to maneuver emergency vehicles around the building. So that was first and foremost. With regard to the stormwater and what we're proposing in terms of porous pavements, we wanted to talk with Jeremy at City Engineering very early on just to see what his requirements would be with regard to stormwater, and we know that's an important component of any development project. So he's taken a first look at it, and as far as just based on his comments, he's on board with what we're trying to do. We feel we're going to actually minimize reduction of stormwater with the bioretention and the porous pavements as part of this project. So the space is going to be very well lit. There is lighting around the perimeter, completely around the perimeter. We're looking at space in the rear of the building. Our first task was to orient the building, and we oriented it on a northwest-northeast axis, maximizes sun exposure to the building, and pivots it in a way that opens up the space both in the front and in the back. The last thing we wanted to do was create a building that was really kind of cornered in the back to this backdoor space. So we're eventually proposing, you know, canopies and you know, all kinds of things to invigorate the space. And really the space is flexible enough and big enough to allow for a variety of uses. I think that's pretty much it. I mean, Devin's going to get into the actual building itself, which is really exciting, and just the number of vendors. I know the farmers market was a big piece of this, and the number of spaces that would be allowable there, or be able to accommodate the farmers market and the variety of uses. So I'll turn it over to Devin and then open it up for any questions.
Thank you, Peter. So we worked with CLA to orient the building on the site to allow maximum of pedestrian access. We also, architecturally, we're inclined to curve the building because we wanted to create this kind of curve of curiosity, you know, what's around the bend, and to kind of make it an exciting site for people to experience a farmer's market. We met a handful of times with the Farmers Market Association and received their feedback, and we incorporated it. There are a few locations of accessing the building. One from the front of the building at the South Street. The next at the north of the site to create a connection to the first floor of Elm Street and the Elm Street buildings. And then in the rear of the building, it's open to kind of this planting area and temporary stage if there's any music events that the event coordination and events would like. We've incorporated a shot of the building, bird's eye view, and we wanted to kind of simulate what it would look like during a big event for Glens Falls. The building has 20 overhead doors that open up, and the building becomes quite porous. The materials of the building are kind of a birch-inspired tone of wood and patina green roof. The exterior is covered with these rotated fin louvers for sun shading, and behind that we're proposing a polycarbonate panel with a screen print of birch tree silhouette to add a graphic aspect, very lightly and subtle but noticeable in the shadows of the building from the sun inside, and to kind of reiterate that birch tree effect. This entire design was inspired by a leaf of the yellow birch tree. And then this sheet is part of our submission. We wanted to show a street view elevation to show the height of the building and the neighboring heights in comparison. We also provided a plan and a roof plan to give some idea of the utilities and materials and assemblies that we'd like to use, as well as an interior perspective to give an idea of what it's like to experience the building from inside. And then in the middle is just kind of a color palette of our materials. Mainly, the building's going to be built out of glulam wood with a yellow undertone, the patina green roof, and the exterior is matching yellow tone wood composite. I think that's it.
Pretty much done. Excellent. I can start with Mr. Brown. I know that a lot of this stuff came to us fairly early on, so I assume you've had a chance to go through it.
I'm anxious that this project succeeds functionally as much as it's publicly funded. My first question is, what other events can this building accommodate?
I'd like to defer to Jeff for that.
Yeah, Jeff. Mr. Brown, they did a thing the other night, the city did, it was very hotel wall. It wasn't as well attended as I would have liked as being a taxpayer here in the city, where they explained a lot of the possible future events and expanding on events that we have here now to go along with this. And there were a lot of questions. The public did really speak up, so it was a very interesting forum.
Yeah, there were a lot of questions. We had actually two different sessions, one on Thursday evening, one on Friday morning. There's a lot of, one of the issues that the city has to deal with, as I mentioned early on, is that by necessity, and again, this is getting back to the costs, both the building and the cost of operating, is this has to be as flexible a building as possible. Mayor Collins, when we were talking about the different possible uses, obviously there are some events, for instance, things that are on Glen Street right now, or even in City Hall Park here, that might be used, that might sort of either move down or migrate down or extend down into this facility. So things like Larak, Taste of the North Country, in the wintertime, the Chris Kringle Mart, different kinds of events that could be used. And the idea is that we could do this, and the notion of being able to sort of move out into the street, we're going to be Elm Street there, even though it's not identified there, we're planning to have that sort of be identified with a different kind of road stamping. So you'll have, obviously it wouldn't be actual cobblestone or brick, but something that would look like that. So the building could be easily closed, or the street block could be easily closed off. As events either are large enough or in some cases expand to need additional space, you could actually close off South Street as well. And we were, several questions we had from the farmers market, the idea of expanding into that space or into both of those streets is certainly something that we're going to look at. And it's not impossible, at least to listen to Mayor Collins talk, that were we to get large enough events, there's no reason why we wouldn't extend the all the way up to the monument, the other block of South Street there. So if you had large enough events, you could certainly justify sort of the connection you'd have with the entire, again, as I said earlier, the Glen Street downtown area.
Well, my concern was that depending on what the event is, the requirements for lighting and electricity, etc., can change. I've been a participant with conventions where I'm provided with a table, chairs, lighting, heat, air conditioning, and so forth, and that's extreme, granted, from this. Whereas a farmer's market, yes, you can open it up. But once you lock that facility down, you've got a space of assembly. And the codes change. Emergency lighting, exit lighting, door exits have to be 50 feet from the farthest point. You might need to add doors to that design.
Yes.
That sort of thing. As soon as you change function, new rules come into place. So indeed, it's got to be flexible, but I think at the outset, you've got to be aware that there's impacts when that happens.
Yes, we have accommodated and considered all of that. So the two doors, while they look like they're on the same side of the building, they are about 100 feet apart and span more than, I think, 2/3 of the length of the building. And in regard to the lighting, we are designing for a commercial level light to reach the floor, similar to what you may find in a grocery store, so that we can highlight the farmers market produce especially well, but also can become dimmable in case lower light levels are required.
Now, if you get into that sort of assembly space function, are toilet facilities required?
So if in the case of an assembly, our permit application is prepared in a way so that we would like to temporarily accommodate for that increase of people on the site. We advise that additional porta potties be used on site, and on the site organization plans, if you mind going back to that. In the back alley behind the larger Elm Street building, we would like to plan for the space to allow for that use.
Looking back through the conversations, probably 2019 or after, there was talk about providing handicap parking places in front of the building. I see that designated as an unloading zone now. How are you going to deal with that concern?
Yeah, on the site plan side, we did accommodate handicap parking on either end of that drop zone. I think that was in the original concept. Now I don't know if we show it on the plan, but we can certainly add it.
That is shown on the plan.
Yeah.
And I know that Mayor Collins had talked about it. If something happens where you wind up closing down one portion of the street, that a lot of that portion could be set up to be parked for.
Correct, yeah, on South Street, right on South Street, maybe closing off even half the street, having the other side.
To one-way traffic only, and then the rest of it would be parking.
Correct. One other comment I just wanted to make is that with respect to restrooms, it should be noted that the city, as part of the Spring City Development Agreement, will be leasing the first floor of the incubator building, right? The building up.
36 Elm Street.
36 Elm, right, the building on the left above the leaf there. There will be restrooms in there, probably two on the ground floor and then two in the basement as well. Since we'll be leasing that, we'll have access to that anytime there's an event over in that space.
And then the same as any festival type,
Correct.
this is a balloon festival, any of those type things, they just bring in on-site units
Correct.
for that.
For
as
your
well.
extra.
And some of them are not traditional porta potties. You know, I mean, a lot of times we see that and we think of that, but they actually have on-site trailers now that roll in that are as nice as your home sinks and bathrooms and things like that. So, I mean, a lot of those things are available for festivals. So, those are things that can certainly be considered.
Well, I assume if the incubator building has some kind of legal connection with this building, that toilets in that building would be feasible, legitimate.
Correct.
Thank you.
That's it.
Okay. Peter, questions from you? I know you've been through a few things.
I got a lot of questions. Maybe you can do others first.
Okay.
Sure. The taller portion, is that gonna be 2 stories or is it just gonna have a taller roof?
It's just a taller roof, and the upper level is just basically like a clerestory to let more light in.
The face is pretty much due east, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you're gonna pick up morning sun, but it'll be shaded from afternoon sun.
Yep.
And I assume that's done for that reason.
Okay. I love all the doors that are gonna open like that. I think that's gonna be beautiful. I'm sorry, it's so small. Is the roof, is it a metal roof? Is it a standard seam roof or what's?
We're currently designing with a TPO membrane system on a structural deck.
Okay. And then your outside space, this is probably a stupid question, but those leaves where you have the porous, will you be able to see that? Like, is that a design in the ground? when you're
Yeah,
walking
actually,
through?
do we have a picture of just some of the,
Is it gonna
yeah, it would be a porous pavement, that would be, flat pavement, and porous pavement that would be colored, in a yellow birch tone. So the whole idea is just falling leaves of the birch. We did a kind of a random design in conjunction with the building, and those would all serve as functional, almost stormwater structures. So from the downspouts of the building, we've designed trenches that would take the downspout from the building and actually incorporate it into kind of a drainage structure into each leaf. So it would actually function as a stormwater structure, flat surface with yellow pattern.
Is the rest of it asphalt?
Correct.
That's gonna be really cool.
But it's all porous.
It's porous. Well, the leaves are porous. The asphalt would be just standard asphalt.
Okay. So can you explain just what the maintenance is on porous pavement, on porous asphalt?
Yeah, actually pretty easy with pedestrian plaza space. When you get into roadway, obviously that becomes more of a maintenance issue. But really, it's just they're very self-contained. No salts, no sand. Actually during the winter time, there's less ice buildup because water kind of comes down in through it into the spaces, and even during a freeze thaw. I think what you'll find is that the porous pavement will actually be, that pattern will continue throughout the winter. So while they'll still have to do the snow blowing and the scraping, so to speak, they just have to be really, no sand, obviously, and, chlorine as opposed to, just, the salt and the melting and all of that will have to be just controlled.
And there's no elevation change where that porous area is as opposed to the other aspect?
Just slightly graded down into what you would normally see in a pedestrian plaza space. So they would all just kind of pitch toward a little bit of a drain inlet. So water, although water's going to be pouring through the actual porous pavement, there's also kind of a relief valve, so to speak, as a drain inlet and all that underground. So. Yeah. Those are porous pavements with different designs and things, so we can do any kind of space and any kind of shape.
Why are we not doing the whole area?
Budget constraints.
Yeah, the cost is gonna be pretty expensive for the whole entire plaza.
What is the cost? Is it 2/3 more?
Yeah.
I don't recall currently.
I know that I know it's at least 50% more because there's so much that has to go on with the ground to do porous pavement. I mean, normally when you
Chambers down
you have to have a significant bed of stone material underneath it.
Right, and it's the subsurface that, for the porous pavement that really is the cost.
Yeah.
The pavement itself is, it's a little bit higher, 50% is probably a good number, but it's all the subsurface. And we do have very good soils.
It is very well drained.
Very well drained.
The good news is that you do have some storage capacity underground. I'm assuming there's been some test pits.
We have,
things that have been done to get all of that. Do you have any idea how deep groundwater is?
Oh, we didn't even reach it. I think it was down over 10 feet. So we're high and dry, which is great.
That's the good news.
Yeah.
I got a question. Have you guys ever worked with Stormcrete, which is mostly designed for large spaces and sidewalks as well? I don't know if you guys are familiar with that at all.
We are. Yep.
And the sub-base that's associated with that is only like a foot to a foot and a half down as far as the preparation for Stormcrete.
Right.
As opposed to porous asphalt, which the correct way to maintain these is basically pressure washing and then vacuuming back out.
Right.
And which it should be, if not twice, at least once a year in this kind of environment. You're still going to get, regardless, during the winter, you're not going to put sand in there, but I guarantee you're going to put some kind of salt down there.
Sure.
Just saying. So I was just wondering if Stormcrete could be a possibility since you're going to use a color scheme either way with either product, and you can manipulate these just like it was, it's a concrete product, but you can do shapes and I'm sure you can do different colors and all that. And the nice part about that, if there is an issue, if there's something that breaks or gets damaged, they pull right out and you can put a new one right in.
Yeah.
Whether you're driving onto that surface with a piece of machinery or whatever the case may be, and one of them breaks, it's a viable way to fix that without tearing up the whole tether, so to speak.
Yeah, and we'll take a look at the product. I mean, as we get into the design development, we haven't finished the construction drawings yet, but I mean, we're going to be reaching out to a number of different vendors, and we've worked with several. But Stormcrete is definitely an option.
Yeah.
We'll take a look at the the cost piece of that and whether that fits into the budget. For sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just one more quick thing, and that is you have plantings here over by that stage. Are you going to do other parts with all that outdoor space where you have other plantings?
Yeah, along the street front. So it gets pretty tight along the parking lot in the back. So we didn't want to block off the. If you can go, you can see kind of the spaces that we have. The parking lot behind, which I forget who's the tenant on the rear parking area.
McKay's.
Right. So we just want to make sure that we've got a nice backdrop for event space as a backdrop, and then the only place that really was functionally made sense that wouldn't impede any traffic or, Elm Street I think is going to be a pretty significant corridor, that entrance there, so there'll be bollards, removable bollards for emergency access and whatever we need along Elm Street. So that's an important access and corridor, into the space. So we didn't want to encumber it with planting on that edge. We are, however, going to do kind of an expanded, streetscapes planting in the front along South Street. We're actually expanding the sidewalk. I think, what was the dimensions that we pulled that sidewalk out? Because we're bumping.
It's approximately 9 feet.
Right, 10 foot, almost 10 foot sidewalk there. So, so plenty of space for planting and trees and, sustainability of that.
I like it. I think it's really neat.
Cool, thank you.
That's it.
Ms. Cullen?
We're applying for this to be a low energy building, so while we are protecting from the elements and there's some insulation, we're mainly heating the utility room to operate the plumbing and electrical aspects okay throughout the year. And then we'll leave it up to the city for.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, as we're looking at the budget, I mean, we're looking at being able to add some heat to the building. I mean, I don't know that we're gonna be able to get to, 75 degrees when it's 20 below outside. But I think we're certainly gonna look at some options. We've had some input from some options for heating, different things, and we'll look at that before we submit any formal plans.
I know one of the things that was discussed was possibly doing some kind of a radiant floor, to be able to keep, with a radiant floor, you can do, keep the area 4 feet and lower at a reasonable temperature, but you don't have the heat rising because it's sitting on the ground, so I mean, that's something that might be considered. All set with you?
Yeah.
All right.
We had a lot of questions the other evening, there was a lot asked, again, someone just asked about, maybe this isn't the time to budget for this thing, for like a month, do we have any idea where this is gonna be? To run this thing on a monthly?
Oh, to operate it? We do not yet.
We can look into it and get back to you.
Yeah, and some of it, of course, depending on the energy requirements for.
Well, and I would think it would depend on how often it's being used.
Right.
Well, it's just the maintenance on a building like this, and we have tons of real estate, there's costs of every day.
Absolutely.
Just to have something like this. It looks like it's gonna be a great design, and, the city is going in this arts direction, and this certainly will go along great with that, and the functionality of it. We'll see where we're at once it gets going.
Yeah, and I think, to your point, and I know you were at the meeting on Thursday night, and, one of the most poignant things that was said to us, was by Ed, actually, he was talking about, you have to make sure that this thing can carry itself to the extent possible. So you have to make sure you can use it for as many things as you possibly can. I think the city has recognized that from the outset, when the DRI was developed, like this was designed to be an event and community event center. Obviously, the farmers market is hoped to be an anchor tenant of that, right, and a regular one. But at the same time, one of the reasons for this flexibility is really the need to make sure that we can use this as much as possible.
No, I'm walking distance from this, and we're at the farmers market every week, so that's a good thing, and it's a great asset to our community. But again, as a taxpayer, we have to,
Sure. Understood.
A couple of things that I wanted to touch base on, lighting. I know you talked about lighting briefly. What are kind of the ideas for how this is going to get lit?
So we're designing what's called a catenary system, which is basically a tension cable with downlights spotted throughout at even increments for an even lighting around the space. And we'll also have some uplighting on top of the beams at the upper roof to highlight the polycarbonate panels and that graphic architectural design, and to kind of bring more attention to the upper areas of the space and to emphasize the grand ceiling.
Okay. Outside? What about outside?
Outside there are.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many site lights that we included on there, but we did the foot candles on it. We're currently showing approximately 7 overhead. Right.
So those are the
seven,
tall lights?
Yeah, 7, and they would be at a pedestrian scale level, ornamental light, and we're going through kind of the decorative detailing that we would, want for that to match the building. So we're kind of looking at that. But
I'm wondering if some of the bollard spaces could be light bollards?
Absolutely. In fact, I think we were including.
We are proposing lighted bollards.
Light bollards?
Yeah.
Through this alley connection.
Yeah.
These are all lighted bollards.
Yeah.
And then we have vehicle protection bollards here in between the two spaces, and there'll be lighted bollards down
In
along
there
that
as well.
area.
Which those work out really well to provide, I call stumble lighting.
Yeah.
But
Stumble home lighting.
but don't project up. So I mean, that lights the ground very well, but it's from 3 feet and
Right.
down.
And it's not going to blind you. So.
And it's not, yeah, I know they used them at the Hudson Headwaters when we did that parking lot that we did over there. They put light bulbs there and that all shines down on the ground. I thought that worked out well. Can you talk about the number of spots that would be available both if the building is open and then if the doors are closed? I know there's
Yeah. I'm not sure on the exact quantity, but throughout the main area, which is about 6,000 square feet, we do have a downlight every 8 feet for proper lighting.
Yeah, so the number of spaces to accommodate, I think we looked at, what, 59 spaces when everything is all open.
Okay.
During the summer, and then during.
And those are basically 10 foot by 10 foot spaces?
Right,
something
yeah.
to that
That's right. And then in the wintertime, I think we reduced it down to about, 32 to 30, I think 32 was the exact number that we came up with.
So these overhead doors are also like a tilt up, so they'll also provide like a little bit of a canopy outside above the farmers, vendors.
And are they powered?
No, it's manual, but it's
So it's a
counterweighted,
canopy,
and there are other safety measures we are
Like the old carriage doors?
That's right, counterweighted and they would come up and.
Yeah.
Pull up, kind of slide.
Right.
How tall are they?
12 feet tall, and they range between 8 and 9 feet wide.
Okay.
Yeah. So a little bit of partial cover and then the tent in front of that, I mean.
Or underneath.
Or underneath.
Or underneath
it,
it, yeah, so if they're gonna be 12 feet tall.
Right.
And those canopies are normally, even the big ones are only 9 or 10 feet tall themselves, so you can kind of slide partially under it. I guess.
Exactly.
Peter, do we cover?
Oh.
Go ahead.
The doors will be glazed with glass. Is it single pane, double pane?
So the overhead doors, it's kind of one frame and structured within that as well. So we are currently going into our construction documents and figuring out those details, but we know it'll be glass with some reiterations of that wood composite to bring that into the door.
But as far as energy efficiency, it'll have to have, a fairly decent U value with a glass door. I mean,
Well, we're aiming for this to be a low energy building at the moment, so we're not currently anticipating it to be very thermal.
okay. Did we get any? Do we cross off any of your questions?
Yeah, I did. I got a couple of technical questions. There's a 8-foot fence on the drawings. It's illegal. You can have a 6-foot fence, but you can't have an 8-foot fence.
Are you pointing to the rear property line?
You what?
The rear property line, are you talking
Yeah.
about? Okay.
So you can't have it.
Yeah,
Our code requires a 6-foot height. If you wanted 8 foot, you'd have to get a zoning variance.
Right. In order for that to happen, we'd have to seek some kind of a zoning variance for that.
Yeah,
Sorry.
we'll take a look at that. I think, we were intending it to be more of a screen than anything, but, we can adjust the height on that. We're early stages.
Right,
Sure.
right, while you're here.
Yeah, thank you.
I didn't see any note taking, so I wonder how much the planning board is impacting your project.
Oh, yeah, I mean, your input is valuable, so,
Yeah.
absolutely.
No notes?
I'm taking notes.
And I'm taking notes. Radiant heat, storm creep, lighting.
What's the yearly cost of maintenance?
What's the yearly cost of maintenance? Oh, man. We have mines like steel chaps here, even though I'm 100 years old.
Okay. The catch basins on the driveways, north one and east catch basins on, right in the middle of the driveway. And so that's not, catch basins don't work in the middle of the driveway. So you can move to the left or the right, but, I don't think you're going to want it in the driveway.
Is that visually or physically not working?
Well, no, so from a functional standpoint, and we design parking lots and access ways a lot, and what we find is that it's actually, with a slight grade change, it's actually more practical to put the catch basins in the middle of the lane, so that when you're driving down the lane, especially in a pedestrian plaza where there's emergency access, that the low spot is actually in between the tires, as opposed to bump, 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 bump on either end of the lane. So what we're trying to provide is just a slight low area in the middle of the lane, and working around so that it's a lot easier to maintain. Also, if a plow were going to come through and just kind of plow through, they're plowing through the middle of the lane, and they're not going to, you know, when we do catch basins, and sometimes there's a need to do the catch basins on the corners and on the edges. During plowing, it's really hard to catch that corner and sweep that away if there's some low spots, and it's much more functional, and just it's a better design to actually keep them in the middle.
And away from the property line, so the water doesn't rush to the neighbors.
Correct. We're trying to keep everything internally drained, so we design a lot of our catch basins for the center of lanes, and it works quite well.
And are those almost turning structures more than anything else? I mean, they're kind of at the end of your run.
Yeah, some of them, like the ones that are in the leaves, yeah, those are going to be, even though the symbol shows that they're like these massive catch basins, we're going to be changing the symbol. They're going to be yard drains, the smaller yard drains, and we haven't done the hydrocat calculations yet, the storm calculations, but you know, they're going to be appropriately sized. They're going to be kind of a plaza, you know, end pipe solution, and then as we get a little bit closer to you know, the city side, we'll probably incorporate a couple of catch basins with some sumps and
that are true what we would consider to be
catch basins.
Catch basins, 2 foot by 2 foot square grids.
That's right.
The ones that you're showing out there in the middle may wind up being a foot diameter.
Yeah, that's right.
With a bell underneath.
That's right.
Tied to a pipe.
Yeah, that's right. So we'll change the detail up, and we'll provide the added detail once we start getting into the hardcore engineering. But I appreciate the comment. That's a good one.
Can the farmers drive into the lot? You can't park there, but can you?
Correct. We've designed, and I believe that's where we are, that the entire surface lot can be driven on. So vendors can pull up anywhere. In theory, you could even drive inside if you had some sort of show or you had a vehicle, put them inside there. So obviously there's not room for people to park there permanently, but yeah, the entire lot's designed to be driven on.
Okay, so they can unload, but you can't park there.
Correct.
So the water supply, they got a water supply on the north side, but not on the south side. Why is that?
So the water supply is coming from South Street because we are supplying 2 hose bibs in the general building to accommodate any need for any of the events to use any water in a utility way.
Yeah, but they're on the north side, but not on the south side. And I don't know what the fixtures are, but I don't know if it's pop up fixtures or not, but the doorways and right in front of the doorways. So what kind of fixtures do you have for water supply?
The fixtures are the 2 hose bibs. They're on outside of the building.
Yeah, it's really to supply, water for, hosing down or whatever spray, whatever utility, we felt water, since it's there, there's a utility room. The very tip of the building, that's where the maintenance, the kind of the utility room is going to be for the building. And we're gonna have a water connection from the South Street, coming over and tying in, and then there'll be 2 bibs. I think, do we have a bib on the other side? Yeah, we've got one on the
front.
Yeah, one on the back, so it'll just, and then it'll be on the outside of the building. So those are not for anything more than utilitarian, water hookup, hosing down, whatever.
Is it a hose hookup?
It could be, yep.
What's it?
Think of an indoor-outdoor, pavilion where there might be a need for, somebody with, I don't know, fresh produce or whatever, to wash off. Maybe there's something that, comes in that has to get wiped down or, so strictly for utility purposes only. Not potable water. We're not proposing drinking fountains and.
It's not a drinking fountain, but because it comes from the main infrastructure of the city,
It is potable, yeah.
So, can you incorporate and include that fixtures? Because I don't understand what they're doing, but you can show the pictures of.
Sure, we can take a picture. We can show the detail of that water spigot.
Are these the ones that have like a door over the outside of them that you kind of recess to the wall? And have it, you have to have a key to actually open the door to get to it?
So it doesn't get messed with,
right?
We
Yeah.
could do that. We were
Yeah.
originally proposing it to, just be a spigot with a pipe going inside and insulated to protect against frost.
Yeah. Yeah, I know they make those, but I can.
We could do it as a lock. We could do it as a
I can hear
lockbox.
where this is coming from. But
Sure.
Yeah, it's a standard key for those,
Yeah.
and it's rubber frost-free.
Yeah.
Kids don't plug it in.
Yeah, I would be concerned with somebody
Usually don't
walking down through there at night, just turning the hose bib on and see you later.
We're working on a project now in the town of Webb where some young high school person just stuck a Gatorade bottle down this drain pipe and stormwater drain pipe and clogged up the whole system. Flooded the gymnasium.
Yep.
And the culprit was a Gatorade bottle stuffed in there. So we'll prevent that however we can. Yeah, we can.
Outdoor electric service behind the stage. What's it consist of? How many outlets or something?
Yeah, we'll have that detail for you, but you're right, we do need to provide some kind of outdoor receptacles and things like that. We haven't come up with a design detail on that yet, but that is on our checklist.
Yeah, you see, you've got underground electrical indicated with some boxes.
Right.
Indicated in some certain areas.
Yeah.
I would think that for, some of the vendors and potentially some of the future uses of, other uses of this property, the more, you can't ever have enough electrical.
Absolutely, the more conduit, the better, we will.
Right, if it becomes some sort of an outdoor entertainment thing or something to that nature, I think that, outdoor, obviously, again, those have to be somehow protected or somehow vandal proof or whatever you consider.
Yeah, right now that they're doing two or three outlets or locations.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. Yeah.
In the front of the building, I think another slide in the front of the building where you can put move the trees a little bit 3 or 4 feet from the
Go to the SketchUp model, Scott.
Yeah, they've moved the trees, to the east or west. And then you can, move the curve inward, and then you can do 2 or 3 loading zones or handicap parking in the front. And when you're talking about loading zones, you put your in front of the wall. I can't say it. When you put the loading zone in the drive in front of the loading zones, it's blocking traffic. If you move it in 8 feet or 10 feet, then you can put
Right, yeah, right now, I think the way we've configured and Scott, correct me if I'm wrong with the curb cut on that. Right now, there's space in front of the building, in front of the lot for parallel parking. And we're actually gonna bump that out to, correct, 8 feet to remove that, expand the sidewalk, so make it pedestrian space. So we're going from, yeah, that would be our preference, to expand the sidewalk in that area.
Oh yeah, but when you're loading zones, they're gonna park in traffic lanes. I don't know which one.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that and we'll provide you the detail of what we're proposing.
Yeah, because if you move it inward or westward, then you can put 2 or 3 handicap parking, and you can remove the trees about 3 or 5 feet, and you've got a 10-foot or you're not having 10-foot, you 5-foot on parking space.
Yeah, we'll take a look at the configuration of that, and actually, in the next phase of this, we'll provide you with a cross-section that shows kind of that geometry change that we're proposing, and put the cars in and drop off, so we're not impeding traffic, and how we'll make that work.
Okay.
Are those like, almost like mountable curves?
Yeah, everything's gonna be handicap accessible,
Yeah.
so, we will take a look at the detail. We haven't gotten the exact detail on how we're gonna make that drop-off work, but my guess is that it would be kind of a mountable situation,
That's
and
what
we
I'm
can kind of
thinking.
come in and down.
So I think that would address the issue you're talking about as far as loading and unloading goes.
Insulation, you were talking about the doors, but they are insulated doors?
No,
Well, if it's a low energy building, then it's not required to meet the energy code.
yes, but we are going above that and putting insulation in the roof and the slab.
Yeah, so, how can you maintain that 60 degrees or 50 degrees and 50 or 60 degrees? It's I don't know if they do
Our design approach is that this is coming from the perspective of enclosing a pavilion to protect it against the elements, but for it to be low energy, so as to not impose a huge cost of heating the building throughout the year when it may not be occupied 24/7 like a house is.
Yeah, but when you're in the winter time and you close the doors, what's the temperature going to be?
As a low energy building, we don't need to heat the building for
It would be the
that
same as the
capacity.
outside if you had your festival in an outdoor space.
And with people inside, that would also generate a little bit of heat as well at human level.
Yeah, just to reiterate what I was saying before, we are looking to add heat to the building, right? I mean, obviously, we're trying to maintain the low energy status of the building for obvious reasons. You know, so we'll see what's possible. As I said, as Chairman Hall said, we're looking at possibly bringing forward heating. Obviously, we could also introduce heat to the facility for individual events. But that's what our, sort of trying to weigh those options.
So in the wintertime, and your farmer's market in the wintertime, it's gonna be 40 degrees.
Well, I think it was actually colder than that on Saturday, and they were outside, so I would guess it's an improvement to that.
Nobody's gonna be there to, no customers are gonna be there. Okay. They have a overhead sail footing. What is the overhead sail footing?
Yeah, so we were trying to accommodate footings so that in the event that we decide to put shade structures up, we would be able to cover the pedestrian plaza spaces with shade structures. So consider, sail, you've seen those before, I'm sure, that, in outdoor places where you can provide a little bit more shade, that'll help with sun and temperatures and even that out. It's not part of our budget at this point in time, but we want to accommodate on the footing side so the event, because these sails at the municipal level and the commercial level are very expensive, but we want to make provisions for that so that in the future, if we want to locate the footings and the posts for those sail structures, we can accommodate.
That would be a permanent thing or a temporary thing?
Yeah, those sleeves would come in and out. Yep. Well, the footings would stay permanent, but the sleeves of the poles
And
and
what
the
we're
shade
really trying to do
structures.
there is to sort of future-proof it, right? So you put in what you can afford within the budget. Again, because we have a few variables we're still working on. That if we get to the point, either now or in the future, right, then we can go ahead and put that without having to sort of start from scratch with the foundation.
Or dig anything up.
Correct. Right, dig once.
When you take care of the lights, can you give us a picture or something?
Absolutely. That'll be part of the preliminary package that we put together. We'll definitely do cut sheets and show you all the details of what, we're proposing outside for the lighting, once we get the details pulled together.
I got a question. I don't know if you can answer that, but how do you do the vendors? You got 59 parking spaces, but you got 9-foot doors. That's one parking space. How do you get 20 parking spaces? They said 20 doors, but how do you get 59 parking vendors? 59 parking spaces for 59 vendors. How do you get it?
So we can refer you to our site organization plan that was part of our package, and we've placed the areas of how we anticipate the farmers could organize themselves, but really that's up to the event coordination.
Yeah, and I don't think we anticipated that there would be permanent parking there during their event. So it's pick up, drop off, circulation around, and then it would be pedestrian oriented space. There might be room to accommodate several vehicles, if needed, but again, the idea was pick up, drop off, and circulation. And then the event goes on, and then when the event's over, in a coordinated manner, programming will allow pickup and drop off and maneuvering the space.
And I can see you're gonna have people outside and inside, or how do you do it? Maybe you can show a picture of how you do it, maybe.
That wouldn't be up to this plan, that would be the Farmers Market Association figures out how to distribute
Or
the
any
vendors.
organization.
Or any organization.
I mean, it's similar to Larac.
Right.
When Larac comes in, they get a 10 by 10 space or a 12 by 12 space, and they decide how they want to set it up to access it.
Yeah, but, I don't know if there's a room for 59 parking spaces.
That 59 vendor spaces? They show 59 vendor spaces on the site organization pavilion plan.
I don't think he's seeing that there's one inside door and one outside door. That's how they get that. No.
Right.
And they're all laid out on that diagram in there.
So that there's,
If you look at the diagram
around the outside and then around the inside.
A900, page A900.
Circulation space all the way through. And then,
Yeah, A900 inside space, there's 32, and when you count the outside spaces, it was 59.
Yeah, it was a total of 15.
Because then there's even some over here in the corner. They're not just in the leaf.
Yeah, we wanted to put as much as possible
Right.
to anticipate any expansions,
Right.
but also leave space clear in case the fire department needs to come.
You have to, right?
yeah, you have to leave emergency access.
Yeah, access would be maintained, and there would be clear markings. on how-
Similar to how Larac is done out here in the park. I mean, they have however many vendors come out
For the Bloom
for
Festival,
Larac.
they have their spaces. People get to set up,
Right.
get assigned space.
And the same.
That's not the
when-
city
when
assigned
Zombie
it,
does.
that's the individual.
That's the-
The organization's involved.
Event
Coordinate.
coordinator.
Right.
Right, whoever runs the space.
Yes.
Right.
And for that matter, I should mention that, one of the reasons we chose a mobile stage instead of a permanent stage there was so that there's potentially other space available there as well, which isn't even indicated.
Right.
Overall dimension, can you print the overall dimensions, like the
Of the lot and we'll provide that, yep. I mean, we do.
We have that on the architectural plan, I believe. Is that, can you go to the next page? Yeah, that one. So the plan in gray showing the concrete floor has some overall dimensions there.
Overall building.
For the building,
Is
for the
that-
building dimension,
is that
and then
what
we'll
you're-
provide that for the lot as well.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I see, okay.
How's the acoustics and the thing? I was wondering how acoustics between when a band, they got a band there or something. How's acoustic travel?
Sure, so inside the building, we're currently still evaluating that, and we're considering a ceiling, perforated ceiling, if needed, based on some acoustical calculations, to see if that could accommodate and bring the acoustics down a notch inside, outside. Would you like to speak to outside?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really detailed it out yet, but we've been involved in several projects where we can use, dampening devices if we need to on the outsides of the buildings and things like that. But I think that's something we're going to have to just, if it becomes too loud and we get the decibel level down, we got to crank down the amps, I guess, and we make adjustments. We certainly don't want to create a situation that's going to be a nuisance for anybody, and certainly that comes into hours of operation and whatever the bylaws of the city ordinances for event space, with any other venue that's there. We'll just make sure that,
Similar to Jazz Fest.
exactly.
Those kind of things. I mean, if you've ever been in New Orleans to see Jazz Fest down there, I mean, that runs for 2 straight weeks. And it's basically the same thing, and it starts early afternoon, it runs until early evening, and then it's done, and everybody scatters out into the city. And I think that something like that, could certainly, I know there's a place over in Vermont that does a blues fest, and it's the same type thing. It's an afternoon event. These things don't go until late at night. What a lot of times they'll do is they'll tie something like that to having a main concert at the Civic Center. So there would be an evening concert at the Civic Center where there's 2 or 3 big acts, and during the day it's a bluegrass festival or something that the people come down and do that, and then go to the Civic Center at night. So I mean, a lot of the times they try and tie those events together. And a lot of times with those outdoor events, they're not significantly amplified. A lot of times they're going to be more acoustic with some minor backup. Drummers don't need amplification.
Metallica won't be attending.
Exactly.
I know.
In the narrative, what's the difference between tilt-up door panels and tilt-up overhead doors? They're both mentioned in this.
They're the same thing. We can amend our language to be consistent.
Say it again?
It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
The
We
overhead
can,
door, tilt-up door panel is the same thing.
we can amend it so that our language is consistent.
How does it provide shade in the winter? The doors go up. They don't go out.
Half of it is outside, half of it's inside.
Yeah,
But in the winter, we do anticipate the doors to be closed and to help block the wind for whoever's inside.
I'm fine. Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming and giving us an update. We look forward to the fall application when that comes, and I think we'll deal with that as we get there.
Thank you for your questions.
For you to do the sketch.
Yeah, very, and just in terms of, from a procedural standpoint, you're going to be requiring seeker, I'm assuming, and the whole piece. So we can talk with you folks about the action, type 1, type 2, what we're looking at here, and coordinate the environmental assessment forms.
As to what's going to be needed. I think just because that's already been remediated as a site. When the OTB was torn down and we went through all of that, I assume that there's some sign off from DEC of what happened there. So at that point, it almost reverts back to law. I mean, so. Right. There should have been something, because I know that they went through a lot of asbestos removal when they demoed OTB and they took down
Juice and Jar,
Messiao's,
the Daily Double.
and the Daily Double. So I know when all that stuff came down, there was a lot of interaction. That's what I'm wondering, if we almost get to the point where it's an unlisted action.
Okay.
And it's just a short form, but.
Guessing or?
Yeah, I mean, can we coordinate on that, just to,
Yeah, absolutely, and Kathy can help you, Kathy can help you with that as well.
okay, all right, great. Thank you. Look forward to finalize.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. So now we can jump back to, I think, Kathy? Yeah, there it is. Oh, somebody new walked in. No? Okay. Okay, just Jimmy? I saw somebody come in, I didn't realize. Okay. All right, so then I'm gonna make a motion to table sign review 220009, for AJ Signs representing, Hudson Headwaters Health Network, until somebody is present to present the project to us. All in favor? Is there anybody that has anything else that would like to go over?
I have a question.
Yes.
No Electric is expanding their mural. Do they have to come back?
They're expanding the mural? I was not aware of that.
Putting it further down the wall.
I thought they talked about having more panels than they
Like they were
did.
just gonna, the mural was there and they were just painting the rest of the building.
I saw them putting up new panels.
I wondered if they took some, I think some of them got taken down at one point because the paint was actually coming off of them. So, Hill Electric, that's the one that the school did, that the high school kids did. I think then that some of the panels, like the paint started coming off of them, and Subach took them down, had to take it down, and take it back to the school, repainted it. I think they're just putting it back up. I don't think that they've expanded it. I think it's the same size.
These I saw, they had the mural,
Yep.
and then these electric panels just up and lifted further down the wall.
Okay. I can check. I have to go back and look at the original application to see if I can get it.
No big fan.
We are, yes, I take a motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Anybody opposed? No opposed. Peter, thank you very much.